independently home states instead of a single uneasy, unwidely state with great strains and stresses within the body politic was the greatest contribution that could be made towards the creation of a stable new Asia. So he says that for world peace also it was separate countries in the subcontinent for the stability of a new Asia. Peace loving men and women who today lament the strained relation between Pakistan and Bharat, and none laments them more than we do, should at least have this consolation that had Pakistan not been separated from the rest of British India, far more serious dangerous cracks would have appeared in that subcontinent, resulting in untold upheavals. So he refers to the loss, the harm it could do if British India wasn't separated into two countries. He says that though people lament the strained relations between Pakistan and Bharat, they should know that if they were not separated, it might have caused even more problems. It might have been even more dangerous for the world peace. Potentially, therefore, the creation of Pakistan has by itself dissolved what would have been a perpetual danger zone in Asia. So he says that if nations were not separated, obviously the Asia would have now been a perpetual danger zone in the world. But it has done more than that. Cast your mind on all the countries of Asia, one after another. Almost everywhere you will see intense nationalism, great backwardness, impatience with colonial rule, and in some, a greater or lesser degree of democratic rule. But in many of them, you will also see internal strains, moral doubts, ideological conflicts, waverings, hesitations, and confusions. Now he refers to different problems which are still there in different countries, in different nations, but he says that in comparison to them, Pakistan is a great success. He says that in Pakistan we do not see such kind of problems as we see in the other nations, in other countries having different nations in them. They have some moral doubts, ideological conflicts, waverings, hesitations, confusions, and strains because of the people living over there who have different ideologies, who have different conflicts like that. But as Pakistan was based upon the ideology of Islam and it had a majority of the Muslims, obviously, therefore, we have escaped such problems, we have escaped such dangers. It is rather unified, a unified nation, a unified country. Next, in the midst of these, Pakistan stands unified. So he uses the word unified. In the midst of these confusions and conflicts, Pakistan stands unified in the world. It stands unified because its people are free from mental confusions which elsewhere create disruption and cast menacing shadows on the future. They have chosen for themselves the path chalked out for them by their simple, practical, clear-cut beliefs and decisions. So I've already referred to what reasons he gave that Pakistan is unified and the other countries having different nations are not unified, they are strained. I've already referred to it. We will move on to the next paragraph. This intensity of purpose and this firm faith have during the last 3 years been demonstrated in ways which surprise our critics and our friends, and in some way went beyond our own expectations. He says that the people of Pakistan, the Muslims of the subcontinent, had a firm faith and belief in their mind which was responsible to make them demand their own separate country. And he says that this faith was really very firm and it was based on genuine grounds. When British India was partitioned, we the Pakistanis were asked to set up a new state of 80 million people within a period of 2 months. So they had The people of Pakistan, the Muslims of the subcontinent, had belief in their own powers, and this belief came true when they were asked to set up a new state of 80 million people within a period of 2 months. We had no capital and no flag. So he says he is now going to tell us the problems they faced while Pakistan was established. When Pakistan was established, our administrative machinery had to be built up from scratch. That there wasn't any administrative machinery at all. We were allotted an army, but its personnel was dispersed far and wide and could not come together for months. The army which was allotted to Pakistan, it was scattered, it was dispersed in different areas of the subcontinent, and they couldn't come together for months. We had no military equipment. There wasn't any military equipment. Our share of the military equipment of British India, which was allotted to us on paper, remains largely undelivered even today, when 3 years have elapsed. And he says that we were on paper, legally we were given a share of military equipment, but India, Bharat, or whatever, they hadn't delivered this equipment to us. Being a backward people, we had no industry, no engineers, and practically no traders. So Pakistan in the beginning had no industry, no engineers. They did not have any manpower who were technically trained, and practically no traders, and they didn't have any traders. Within a few months of independence, 7 million homeland refugees driven out of India came over to us in a miserable plight to seek shelter. And within a few months of independence, many people, homeless refugees, obviously they might be Muslims of India, they were thrown to us, as India couldn't afford to keep them with themselves. They were not as kind, and they were not as we might say that they were not kind enough to keep them to themselves. Rather, they were just thrown away to Pakistan. Had it not been for the unity of our people, we might have floundered. He says that if we were not unified people, obviously we might have floundered. We might have refused to keep those people, and we might have given up everything. But today, after 3 years, we are stronger than before. He says rather we remained unified, and finally we got stronger and stronger. And in spite of some very anxious moments when our international rights and our freedoms seem to be in jeopardy, we are still free. And he says that though there were very risky years, those years were very risky for us, but after the elapse of 3 years, we are still free. What are the demands that our freedom makes on us? In the next paragraph, he talks about the demands that our freedom makes on us. Our first duty is to ourselves. I do not say this in any spirit of selfishness and chauvinism. A free people must maintain their own freedom first. He says that a free people must maintain their own freedom. Otherwise, they disgrace the fair name of free men and women all over the world. He says that if we want freedom, if we demand freedom, we must be eligible to have freedom. We must have our own guts as free men and women. But the maintenance of freedom requires constant vigilance. He says that anyone can demand freedom. That's not a big matter. What matters more is that we must be able to maintain our freedom. Liberty does not descend upon a people. A people must raise themselves to it. He says that liberty isn't a plaything. Liberty is not so easy to get. But when we have got it, but it is we ourselves. We have to make struggles to raise ourselves to democracy. We must be competent and qualified enough. We must be we must have the ability, we must have the eligibility to raise ourselves to freedom. It is a fruit that must be earned before it can be enjoyed. We should be able to earn it before we can enjoy it. We have to make struggle, we have to pay a lot of struggle, we have to put a lot of effort to get freedom. That freedom means freedom only from foreign domination is an outworn idea. He says that it is an old idea that freedom means freedom from the foreign rule. Rather, freedom means freedom from our own incapabilities, freedom from our own lacks. It is not merely governments that should be free, but the people themselves who should be free. And no freedom has any real value for the common man or woman unless it also means freedom from want, freedom from disease, freedom from ignorance. So, true freedom means freedom from want, means freedom from the lack, the poverty, or the availability of things, freedom from disease, that a government must be able to free its people from disease, and freedom from ignorance. So, it must educate its nation. A government must educate its nation. So, this is how we can say people are free when they are free from all these lacks, they are free from all these problems. This is the main task which confronts us if we are to take our rightful place in the modern world. And he says that this is our task. Our freedom demands from us that we have to cope up with all of these challenges. We cannot hold the clock back, and therefore it is we who must go forward at a double pace. Sorry. So he says that we cannot bring back the old times, but we can move on, we can move forward. So it is our duty to move forward, and not to repent upon, or not to lament upon, or not to be sad upon the previous times, bending all our resources and all our energies to this great purpose. So we have to put all of our energies to this great purpose of being free in person, being unified in person, being to make ourselves eligible for the freedom we have got, to raise ourselves to its requirements. Students of history are aware that during the last 2 or 3 centuries of foreign domination, our people have not kept pace with the march of civilization. He says that our people hasn't been able to keep pace with the civilization of the world, with the development of the world. It was during these centuries that Western civilization, of which we are the proud torchbearers, discovered a use for science which, though not new, was so fast in tempo and so vast in its magnitude that it gave civilization a new orientation altogether. He refers to the speedy development of science in the previous centuries. This is the phase that for various reasons our people missed, and he says this was the phase which we as Pakistanis, as a new built nation, had missed. The result is that today we find multitudes emerge as large free nations in Asia with their material and mental resources utterly undeveloped, and with their standards of living so low that the world conscience should not be where it is, should not be content to leave them stagnant. So they say that, he says that Asia left behind in that age of development, the development of science and technology. Now he says that we shouldn't lament on that time that we missed. Rather, our ancient steadfast faith is such a source of strength to us on the ideological front in these modern uneasy times, must be wedded to the pioneering virality of modern technology. This is the synthesis we must achieve quickly, not merely for the sake of progress, but for the sake of world peace itself. And he, in short, he refers to the idea that as we missed science and technology, what should we do is that we should just try to keep up and move on to a stage to a level that we must be standing together with the other world who is developed technically and scientifically. Fine. For I sincerely believe that war and peace and progress and prosperity all indivisible today. The innumerable millions of Asia, heirs to ancient cultures,